Hi everyone, you got Rod Crandall here, Chief Integration Officer at U.S. Advisors Insurance. You probably see some smiling faces maybe on either side of me or possibly below me. You've got Andrew Casilius and George Steele. Andrew is labeled Nate Berglund, but don't you worry, he's Andrew. We appreciate you. We appreciate you being here today. It's St. Patrick's Day, so I don't know if we're between you and some green beer, but if we are, this will be a great way for you to wrap up the day before the green beer shows up. So we are in a series of webinars that we do once a month called our Coach's Corner. Our desire in doing this is to bring forward to you planning strategies utilizing insurance products. We try to be creative and thoughtful. Most of what we intend to do is to bring awareness so that you can identify clients that need to have good conversations, and then ultimately helping you have those conversations with those clients. I consider that positioning. And so we find that what we like to do at U.S. Advisors is help clients, our clients being advisors, to intentionally incorporate insurance into their practice. And really how we do that is helping you identify who to talk to and helping you talk to them. And so today we have a pretty exciting topic, in my opinion. I have a feeling that a number of you that might be listening to this may not be aware that we can design something like this. And so we called this converting lazy assets into smart money. And I want to describe to you how we can use a life insurance contract, but specifically design it in such a way that we're able to have attributes in a life insurance contract that we wouldn't normally be able to. And a lot of those attributes makes it feel and look like an annuity. And we want to talk to you a little bit about that. We want to share two products that we have in our stable that can do these things, do a little bit of comparing and contrasting. We want to show you a little bit of case studies and of course answer any questions that you might have along the way. Andrew, would you say anything else before we get started?
Yeah, most importantly, help you identify the correct client to look in your own book of business who may benefit from this concept and these products.
Exactly right. So I thought this was nice. I stole this from North American. You know, it's like, where's our safe havens today, right? Stockholders think that the bonds are safe and bondholders think stocks are safe. What are we getting in bank accounts? You know, in preparation for this meeting, I looked in my town, looked at CD rates in my town. The best I could find for a 13-month CD was 1%. For a 24-month CD, the best I could find was 85 basis points. For a 36-month CD, 95 basis points. And if we want to lock up capital for 5 years in a 5-year CD, 1.51%. Whoa, those are very slow, right? I've heard it say that putting money in bank accounts is losing money safely, right? What do we know about CDs? Those interest rates, a 5-year CD at 1.5% is taxable every year. We just got an inflation number near 8%, right? So not only are we losing buying power, but we're paying taxes. So money that's sitting in bank accounts is earning very little to no interest and should strongly be considered for the structure that I'm going to share with you today. Okay, so you've got CD rates and money rates in banks very, very low. So then you might move into annuity structures for a lot of those clients. And so annuity structures are much better. I think we can get a 5-year product today in about 3.5% range. Does that sound right, guys? What kind of rate do we have on a 5-year product nowadays?
3.25.
Yeah,
3.25.
Yeah, so 3.25. That's way better than 1.5, especially if it's tax deferred, right? So that's still much better. But what if I told you that we could use a life insurance product, and in so doing, we might be able to increase that yield to maybe 4% or 4.5%? And what if we didn't have any surrender charges? Could that possibly be possible? And the answer is, yeah, it can be. And so stick with us, and we want to kind of describe that for you. Okay, so the what if question here is, what if you could use a life insurance contract to look and act like an annuity, right? So what does that mean, right? Well, what that means is you take a life insurance contract and put a one-time lump sum into a contract instead of paying ongoing premiums as people normally do. If you take a one-time lump sum, what happens is it becomes a modified endowment contract. Now, if you've been around life insurance for any length of time, you've been trained to know that a modified endowment contract is bad. And sometimes it is. especially if we're trying to accumulate wealth inside of the contract for supplemental retirement income. If we MEC a contract, we effectively violate the life insurance laws. Well, this structure, we want to do that on purpose to MEC a contract. So what happens when we MEC a contract is that it feels like an annuity. And what do I mean by that? So a MEC contract still has gains in the account on a tax deferred basis. So we're not paying taxes as the money is accumulated, right? But to the extent we take a distribution from that MEC policy, we have to take our gain out first, which is exactly what we have to do in an annuity structure. In a normal life insurance structure that's non-MEC, when we take our first dollar out of the contract for supplemental retirement income, we get to take our basis out, right? The first thing we put in is the first thing we can take out. So this MEC status switches that to last in, last out, which is effectively annuity status. So when you have a MEC life insurance contract and you take distributions from it, you take your gain out first. Okay? But what a lot of people don't know about a MEC contract is if a death benefit is paid, instead of us taking money out for income, the death benefit is still paid income tax free. Okay? So we have a MEC contract that's going to look like an annuity, right? So then the next question is, what if we could waive the surrender charges on a policy like that? You're used to life insurance policies having a 10-year, 20-year surrender. What if we could eliminate that surrender entirely, right? Is that better than a 5-year surrender schedule? Okay, we're going to talk about why you may or may not want to waive surrender. It does have a performance impact on the policy. But again, what if you could have something that looked like an annuity, that had the opportunity to earn a higher rate of return than an annuity, that came with a death benefit? We could waive surrender charges and we could actually offer trail compensation, right? North
And the
American has a
living
product.
benefits.
And living benefits, thank you, Andrew, right? So there's a lot of reasons to be thinking about this. The average client doesn't think about this kind of structure, right? It's specially designed. And then look at the last one. What if we could offer a cap of 6.5%? If you looked at any fixed index annuities today, where are S&P caps nowadays, guys? Are those around 4 and 4.5% in today's environment?
We're starting to inch up closer to 5% now.
Okay, so again, we get higher caps. Well, why do we get higher caps in life products than annuity products? And it's really because they can charge for the cost of insurance, right? So we've got to be able to net out. We might have a higher cap, but we also have higher internal costs. And that's why I indicated we can get maybe 4% return in these contracts if we get good performance in the S&P. And we're going to describe that for you a little bit more here. All right. So again, what money are we talking about here? We're talking about lazy money. Why do we call it lazy? Right? Because it doesn't want to work like this dog? No, it's not that it doesn't want to work. It's that it's as good as putting it underneath your mattress, right? And that's that idea of losing money safely. And so if we're thinking about that, we go, well, where is the lazy money, right? Where do we look? Okay, we want to look with clients that have money in bank accounts, right? If we have money in bank accounts, the question is, what is the purpose for that? Oftentimes the purpose is emergency funds, long-term care, legacy, and then they're losing money effectively. Well, maybe we can reposition some of those dollars. What about bond portfolios? Well, what's the issue with bond portfolios right now? Yields are very, very low, right? Fixed income, same thing. So it's clients that have those types of accounts that they should consider whether or not they should have this sort of asset class or a sleeve of this asset class. Some other things you might want to think about are bonding requirements. You know, if you have construction companies, a lot of times they'll have large bonding requirements, and that money needs to be stewarded in a safe, liquid environment. Well, that's probably a cash account. And again, if we can yield higher than the cash account, we can get tax deferred growth and we can get a death benefit besides. This is something that we can really consider for even business owners or those that have retained earnings that keep money inside of their C Corp or their S Corp, again, in low interest rate environments. Now, one thing that's interesting is the design we're going to show you is very similar to the design that banks put in place. So I don't know if you're aware, but about 70% of banks have specially designed life insurance portfolios that's called bank-owned life insurance. And a lot of the times when they design those contracts, they're designed just like what we're going to show you here today, designed to have a one-time lump sum that creates a MEC contract that creates a cash value growth in year one. See, banks love cash value growth in year one because they don't have to take a charge to earnings, right? So they have and they'll fund it at millions at a time. So they'll take $1 million from their left pocket, put $1 million into their right pocket into these specially designed bank-owned life insurance contracts that will give us a 3 or 4% yield in today's marketplace net of fees. And thus we turned the $1 million into $1,030,000, and we got death benefit besides. And so while this topic is not about bank-owned life insurance, I wanted to draw the correlation to that because you have banks which are professional money managers, and 70% of them have some of this, right? 70% have large insurance portfolios. And so my question to you is, why do they have large insurance portfolios? Because they love life insurance? Because they love insurance producers? No, they have it because the math works, and it works very well for banks. And while the math for individuals isn't quite as good as banks, because banks are generally buying this in institutionally designed and priced products, we have these retail products that are designed to look like those. And that's what we're going to be describing for you today. So again, it's really thinking about anybody who's sitting on cash in any form or fashion, right? Including those that might have an inheritance or a windfall of some kind. Guys, you got anything else to add? Yep.
I'd say keep rolling.
All right, I keep rolling. So North American has a product called the Smart Builder IUL. This is a very cool product. There's no loads. There are the ability to waive surrender. They do have living benefits again. So we're getting not only a higher yield, which is what people are really after, but we're getting these auxiliary benefits along for the ride. 3 different compensation options, one of which offers a trail commission, and that trail commission pays 90 basis points on an asset trail for the first 15 years and then drops to 40 basis points. So I know many of the audience makes their primary living with assets under management, and I know most of you will be charging 1% to maybe 1.5%. Well, this product, we get 90 basis points. And so if it's 90 basis points and we can get all of these attributes for our clients, this might be really good, not only for the client, but also for your practice, as I know many of you like to have renewal commission or recurring revenue. And then although we are often talking about the S&P, and that's certainly the index we see funded probably the most, there are a couple others, and including 11 different opportunities inside of this particular product. George and Andrew, would you share anything else on this particular product, on what you really like with regard to how it works and some of the design features?
I would say the key there is no load. When we think about life insurance, obviously it's typically front loaded. There are surrender charges. There are costs associated with getting the contract issued, underwritten, et cetera, et cetera. These products are designed, like you mentioned, almost like an institutional COLI product, where there are no loads. You're looking at, even without the surrender charge waiver, liquidity being 90+%, the moment the money hits the contract. So any argument from the client that life insurance is expensive is going to be completely dispelled when they take a look at the ledger. And like Rod, you mentioned, a lot of times this lazy money is being used specifically in liquid accounts because the client wants to know that if there's an emergency, they can pull that money out and pay for whether it's a health situation, long-term care, or some other things. So again, this product provides the same liquidity, but now instead of us going backwards on the returns because the money is being kept in a low return account, we'll show you how your client can yield up to 5.5% after 5 years of keeping this money in the contract. And most importantly, they do have a tax-free death benefit and tax-free living benefits, which include not only chronic illness to cover long-term care expenses, but also with this North American product, Smart Builder, it also includes critical illness, which covers cancer diagnosis, heart attacks, and stroke. Tell me which client would object you saying, let me show you how we can move your CD, $50,000, show you a much higher yield, still give you the liquidity that you need, but also have a tax-free death benefit. Oh, and by the way, if you need to accelerate it for cancer diagnosis or heart attack or long-term care, you also have the money aside. I'd be hard pressed to find any clients that would put much resistance to that.
No, it's very well said. And one other thing to mention is right now their limit is a $1 million lump sum. They've had this product or a version of this product for some years, and I know in the past they've ratcheted down to $500,000, even down to 250. Part of it depends on how much they ultimately get. But right now they'll accept it up to $1 million into a contract. The screen you're looking at right now, I pulled right from North American as well, and they really call this the 3Ls, which you really heard in what I said and what Andrew was talking about. It's about leverage. Okay, you got money in one pocket, we can put it in another pocket and get leverage immediately. Then we can create legacy, right? So much of these lazy assets are really the what if bucket, right? And what if nothing happens? What's going to end up a legacy, right? Well, if we have money that's earmarked for future generations, we need to consider the most powerful transfer vehicle in America called life insurance, right? So we're talking about legacy, and then we're talking about liquidity. Depending on the structure, it might be 100% liquid, or to Andrew's point, might be 90% liquid, right? And again, maybe if we can't satisfy the liquidity inside of the account, we don't put all the money in that account, right? We have 200,000 in the bank, maybe we take half of it, right? Things to be considering. If you've heard me talk before, you know that consideration is my favorite word. And I think that many people aren't considering insurance solutions because the word insurance is in the solution. I don't need that insurance. Well, most of our best planning ideas are for clients that want the solution, not that they specifically need the solution. And they want what the insurance does, not necessarily what that insurance is. Okay, so that's really kind of big picture on North American. But we also have United Life has a product of a similar design, which is called their Legacy IUL. Now it has almost all the same attributes, but they actually are much easier from an underwriting standpoint. No exams at all up to 400,000 of net amount at risk to age 75 and up to $200,000 net amount at risk at age 76. So they have a pretty slick program whereby if you have clients that you think are maybe less than perfect health, this United Life product may be the best product. And if you think that they're very, very healthy, then the North American product could be the best product. And that's where you're going to count on one of us when you call us with the person. So we're going to be able to vet what are we trying to accomplish, how's our health, and what does everything else look like. So I'm going to go into more of this, the questions that are asked on this simplified underwriting process. But before I do, Andrew, is there anything else that you would want to highlight on this?
Yeah, I'm personally very excited about this new United Life's Legacy Excel product because it does truly feel like an annuity on steroids, meaning that the underwriting is really streamlined. There are knockout questions, and you're pretty much good to go. And for whether it's, again, healthy clients that may just not want to go through a traditional underwriting, consider this United Life's Excel IUL product. And again, it offers very similar features to the Smart Builder IUL with North American, where there's no load, no surrender charges, and to be honest with you, maybe even a better portion is that it does pay a 7% commission to the advisor on single premium, which is pretty rich when you look around, in today's environment. So I'm personally very excited about this product just because, again, it cuts through the underwriting. But to your point, if you do have a healthy client that wants to get a little bit more leverage and doesn't mind going through underwriting, Smart Builder with North American might be the way to go.
Yep. Like always, the real answer is it depends, right? If we know the client we're talking about, then we can discuss that client, discuss the specifics of that client, and then we can custom design solutions for you. Okay. So while Andrew was talking, I kind of showed you this little product at a glance. We have all kinds of material and supporting mechanisms. If you want any of these things, we can make all of these things available to you clearly. Here's what I wanted to show you on the knockout questions, right? So effectively, this pre-qualification on this Legacy XL, the first thing is they want to make sure that we have appropriate height and weight chart, right? And so we got to sort of accomplish that first. Then what they've got here is about 11 questions. Review these knockout questions, right? So they're talking about in the last 12 months, have you ever been hospitalized or had a treatment that was not completed? Do you have any physical ailments? Sort of the normal sort of questions. So you got 10, 11 knockout questions. Then they're asking in the last 5 years, have we had any of these issues? So at the very end of the day, what you're talking about is 19 questions that you can ask your client without having an application in front of you. And if you can answer no to these, it's very likely that you're going to be able to fly through underwriting and get one of these products in place.
And these are pretty heavy duty questions. These are not, you know, even diabetes, you can actually get an approval with that. So we're talking about pretty heavy duty conditions here that would get you disqualified. But if your client is, getting some treatment for whether it's anxiety or even some cardiovascular issues, diabetes, there's still a pretty good likelihood that they can get approved.
Yep. Yeah. So, again, pay attention. So sometimes people just shy away from life insurance because it has to be underwritten. Let's address that a little bit. I understand that, and I have a lot of pain in underwriting too, and I do wish that my products didn't require underwriting, and some of them don't, right? But what we find is that sometimes the ability to get improved performance is directly related to being able to have to qualify for the coverage, right? And so if you have someone you're going to see some of these numbers, if you're following us, you're going to go, how can they even do that? Right? And they can do that because you have to qualify in order to get it. And so underwriting isn't always a bad thing, it's dialing it in. And certainly it's not a bad thing if you have very healthy clients. Okay? So let's go in and give you an example. All right. So there's a lot of numbers on this page. Okay. So what I've done here is I've compared 3 different designs for a 45-year-old male. I say I've done it, really we've done it. George pulled together these numbers for me and I put together this graph, right? So 45-year-old male, standard rates with a $100,000 lump sum. What I'm doing is comparing 3 different designs. The first one is the North American product without a surrender charge. Okay. The second one is the North American product with their surrender charge, which is a 10-year surrender. Then lastly, I am then comparing this United Life Legacy XL IUL product, which comes automatically without a surrender. Okay. Now, noting that North American is currently, the illustrations are showing a current return of 6.12 and a guaranteed return of 2.5. And understanding that United Life isn't exactly apples to apples, but darn close. So they're assuming a 6.16% return on the current and 2.5 on the guaranteed. Okay. And so what I've done is I've then done current structures and guaranteed structures, both on the death benefit and the cash value. And I've snapshot 1st year, 5th year, 10th year, and 20th year to get an idea of what are the values of these things. So in year 1, if we use the product without surrender, we have a death benefit of $246,000. So right away, that's big leverage for the legacy piece, right? It was in the bank. Well, what happens if the person dies in the 1st year in the bank? They have $100,000. Here, their heirs have $246,000. If we build in the surrender, they actually have $249,000 in year 1. And notice that I've made the green columns for North American on which one has a better value. Because what you might be able to deduce as you look at this is that the surrender schedule death benefit you can see is green. So if we take a surrender schedule, our death benefit is higher in all of these snapshot years than if we don't take a surrender. Okay. And you'll see that United Life is actually best in year one. It's better in year one than any of the North American products for this client. Okay, but it lags performance in all of the other years. Doesn't make it a bad product. It's back to, again, insurability. It may be easier to obtain, and certainly someone with a health concern at North American may not be able to get these schedules. Okay. And so the death benefit is a bit higher here. What about on a guaranteed basis, right? Well, on a guaranteed basis, what we see is without surrender ends up a little bit better, but you can see that these numbers are pretty close. What I'm most concerned with is the cash value, right? Because we're doing this primarily for the cash value, but we have to bring the death benefit along with us because it's life insurance. And so in the first year, under current assumptions, without surrender charge, you put in $100,000, and at the end of the year, you have $104,000 available. Okay, so that's a 4.2% internal rate of return under current assumptions, right? Without surrender, or with the surrender, it's 103.9. So again, a 3.9%. They've got all of their principal and even some of their gain available, right? And then look what happens over time. We get out 10 years, we get out 20 years, okay? And that's under a current schedule. But guess what? We don't know if we're going to get return next year. If we're going to follow the S&P or anything else from now to the next year, we're going to get a return. I hope so. But what if we have a market pullback? If we have a market pullback, we may credit in our index 0, but the company will back up at 2.5%. So we really don't get a 0. If we get a 0 in the indexed account, then they give us 2.5, and that's the guarantee. And so look at this, even in a worst case scenario, after year one, we've got 99,900 without the surrender, and we have 99,600 with the surrender. And look at United Life, says no matter what happens, you're going to earn $500 in this contract. By the way, you're going to earn $500 in this contract, and what else are you going to have? You're going to have a year one death benefit of at least $244,000. Okay. And so again, this is all about this $100,000 right here is somewhere. Okay, somewhere. Why aren't we considering putting some of that 100 here? Right? Because if that somewhere is in a bank account, that means that that bank account is not outperforming any of these numbers. If I put the bank account right here, the bank account doesn't win in any category. Right? And so that's what I think is really important to think about in this kind of structure. Andrew, George, things to add on this?
No, I think the one thing to stress is really the return on the cash value here, and let's use it 5 years. Now, one clarification, when you say without surrender, that actually means that you adding a optional surrender charge waiver. So it's a little, just want to make sure we're clarifying that. So what it says without surrender, that means that there's an optional surrender charge waiver rider included, which again, soups up the liquidity early on in the contract. So if the client wants to see completely no surrender charges, that's where you would use that optional surrender charge waiver. But without it, again, you're looking at 90 plus, 95% liquidity in a contract, and the performance 5+ years is actually going to be greater without the optional rider. So if we're looking at 5-year cash surrender value, we're looking at $129, almost $130,000 on a $100,000 deposit. I mean, that's around 5.5% annualized return on the cash value. Bond alternatives. We have a producer group that is using this product as a bond alternative, because what happens to bonds, obviously, in a rising interest rate environment, that money is no longer safe. Clients are losing values. So it doesn't have to be only CDs or monies in checking account. Every client has a portion of the managed portfolio that's sitting in bonds. Maybe let's take 15-20% of the bond portfolio and let's reposition into this product, and not only give a higher rate of return, but also the living benefits, chronic illness. If that client does not have long-term care, and if they will need to cover LTC expenses, they'll have to liquidate the portfolio. So you're protecting the client's portfolio, you're giving a client a much greater return, zero risk to the principal, and obviously there's a death benefit that's going to pay out income tax free as well.
Yep, that's exactly right. So let's dig in a little bit deeper into the actual contracts so you can understand this a little better. You know, it feels good to have no surrender charge for a lot of reasons. But what we found, and I think, Andrew, you shared with me that the vast majority of these contracts do have surrender charges and people are not surrendering them. And so if we can take a long-term view, you can see that almost all the green is here. And so I want to drill into that a little bit more. Okay. So here's what we've got going. This is actually the illustration for the product with the surrender charge, right? So in year one, we put in 100,000. We've got this 103. That represents a 3.94% internal rate of return, right? On our cash value. Now remember, that's non-taxable. It's not being 1099. We have a $249,000 death benefit. God forbid
Can you
that client
expand
were to
that a little bit,
pass.
Ron?
Make it bigger?
A little bit.
Yep. Do you want me to go one more?
We're good.
Okay.
Perfect. Right here.
It's okay? Great. So if they died in year one, that's 150% return, right? Now they're not likely going to die in year one because they're underwritten, right? But again, these are lazy assets, which are the what if assets. So now we go out 10 years and now we have 169,000. There's a 5.43% internal rate of return, right? By the way, did we mention that this isn't invested in the market? This is a fixed product that follows the market, but it's not invested in the market. So we can get a 5.43% return perhaps inside of this without paying taxes while it's growing and without exposing our dollars to equities. The answer is yes. Well, look what happens to our death benefit. Now it's 331,000. Well, what if that client dies in 10 years? 12% return. Now that 12% return is payable income tax free to the heirs, right? Again, this is generally emergency fund money. Right? We go out
Ron,
20
greedy.
years.
I don't want to wait 10 years. I'm actually looking at year 2 and year 3, and it's already at 5% IRR on cash value.
Correct. That's
I
right.
mean,
It's
that's
pretty
amazing.
incredible, right? And if we were considering an annuity for this structure, we would consider maybe a 5-year annuity that we said was paying somewhere around what? You said 3.3? And that would be it. And by the way, if they died, is there a big ratchet up for death benefit? No. Now, am I down on annuities? No, I'm not down on annuities. We love annuities. But maybe the 100,000 you were going to put in the annuity, maybe 50,000 should go in the annuity, and maybe 50,000 should go here. I don't know, but I want that consideration. And what I really want is you to call one of us so we can talk you through and say, okay, how can we custom design something that might make sense? Okay. Anything else you think I should share on the illustration here? I think, I mean, to me,
I'll add one thing, just the idea that client can participate in the allocation. Again, you mentioned 11 indexes available. So as market conditions change and performance changes, they can optimize where in certain, obviously, fixed products, we would have much more limited changeability, if you will. So, you know, it's got that extra value built right in. And without a lot of bonuses or extra gimmicks, it's a very cleanly structured product.
yep, sure is. So on your screen here, you got a snapshot of those 11 different indices. So you can pick and choose as you see fit and put together even a portfolio within here, right? Fixed portfolio, you can use more than one allocation if you'd like. We see a lot in this Fidelity MFY index. We see a lot in S&P 500. Those are probably, I bet you 80% or more in those two. Would you guys say that's accurate?
Correct.
So again, there's different options and different levels of risk effectively, so you can have your risk and reward conversation inside of this as well. Okay. And then again, trail commission can be very valuable and very important to the extent. And so if you can help clients leverage their dollars and increase their legacy and get money away from the bank and get it to you in some way, shape, or form, you're either getting an upfront commission, maybe on the United Life, 7%, or maybe you're taking a trail commission on this. Now we're in my sweet spot where all we want to do is help clients and make money. And this is a way to do it. And right now, the money that's sitting in these bank accounts is not helping clients. And of course, you're not getting paid on that. So I want to go to the United Life structure unless you had a couple more comments, Andrew.
Can you go to the ledger where it shows the death benefit? I want to just highlight the living benefits because that cannot be understated in my opinion.
Do you want to use this one or go back to the
Go
where I
back to the
was?
ledger where you can see the death benefit and cash
Yep.
value.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so this is, yeah, gentleman is 45 years old. So if we're looking at age, maybe, 70, we're looking at a death benefit that's already almost $600,000. So you're able to accelerate 24% per year of that death benefit to be available to cover chronic illness expenses. The client put in $100,000. They have a pool of, $550,000, $600,000 right now to cover LTC expenses on the tax-free basis. Is that a better way to keep your money liquid for a rainy day than keep it in CDs or money markets or under the mattress? I would argue that it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree. And to add on to that, at that time in his example, we have 383,000 of straight up cash in this policy as well, right? So we have $283,000 a gain that we didn't have to pay taxes on, right? Because it's all been deferred. And then, of course, to the extent that the death benefits paid, we're never going to have to pay that taxes. So you turned 100 into 558, and in that year would be a 7% return. Okay, when I start looking at some of these returns, that's when I get a little like insurance geeky, because I say, wait a minute, we're talking about a 7% income tax-free return. If this wasn't called life insurance, I wouldn't be doing this webinar because I'd be too busy because there'd be a line down the block and around the corner to get some of this stuff. But the reason the line is not there is that this stuff is called life insurance. And that's why it's so important to understand how we position these things and what we talk about here. And the positioning is that it's an asset class and it's a diversification and it's additional leverage, right? And it's about legacy. And so understanding again that most people who do this type of thing don't do it because they need life insurance or love life insurance. They're doing it because they understand what life insurance can do for them and how we can use that asset class that has very unique tax attributes. Life insurance has tax attributes that no other asset class has. And when we start understanding that and clients start understanding that, they start saying yes, because the question shifts from should I or should I not do something like this to how much should I do with this? Is 100 right? Is that the right number? Maybe it should be more. Maybe it should be less. How does that fit into my income plan? And then it's into that custom designing piece. Okay. All right, beautiful. Let's take a quick peek at United Life. So they illustrate it just a little bit differently. They've got this guaranteed, they've got this non-guaranteed alternate, and then the non-guaranteed, which is the current structure that I showed you. And the reality is these numbers still look very good. If you recall from the other spreadsheet, the first year cash value number is better across the board here. So as far as first year goes, this is going to feel good, right? That you have first year returns. It did lag a little bit from the previous product, but not much. And again, remembering that a big difference here might be that, conceptually, they might be squeezing 4 rate classes into 1 rate class here. If you understand that, whereby, if you're super healthy, you end up being maybe not as good here as you would otherwise be somewhere else. But if you have a couple of notches, couple of issues, you might be better here, right? So that's part of why we're brokers, not just in this kind of design, but we always say the answer is it depends, and we have over 40 companies, and all we really want to do is pair the right company with the right client, right? And so sometimes it's going to be one of these companies, and other times it's going to be the others. Okay. Let me see if we can open up for questions. Does anybody have any questions? You can certainly unmute yourself or go into the chat. I'm curious if anyone has any questions on how these designs work and whether we can provide any clarity.
Yeah, please use the chat. That'll be a little bit easier to field those
Okay.
questions without unmuting everybody at the same time.
Okay. All right. So I'm not seeing anything come into the chat at the moment, but certainly if it is, go ahead and come in. I think what I'd like to do is pivot to our toolbox, if you think that's okay, Andrew, unless you have additional comments about these kind of structures. I could go back one more time on the on who to talk to on this basis. Then we'll go into the toolbox.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. All right. So again, who are the people that are going to have these lazy assets? They're generally going to be 50 to 75. They don't have to be, but they generally will be. We showed a 45-year-old. You know, everyone's situation's a little different. Generally, you're going to want 50,000 plus. You want something meaningful. Plus, we need to be sure that, listen, it's appropriate for some people to have lazy assets in bank accounts. If I didn't make that clear, I meant to. I don't think being in a bank account is the worst thing you can do. What I do think is it's the path of least resistance, and clients are getting punished right now. And I believe they have way too much cash in those environments. So as we talked about CDs, savings account, checking accounts, even other cash value life insurance, right? Non-qualified deferred annuities. You know, maybe we're already in an annuity. We can figure out how to perhaps decant that annuity to be able to reposition some things. Okay? Now, this isn't specific to this structure, but if we do have lazy assets, just to broaden it, it's, well, what's that money for? What we've been really talking about is wealth transfer, right? But we have different structures if they really want to really accumulate. Wealth transfer and accumulation we've sort of been talking about, which is sort of income. Long-term care, there's other designs that we can take similar lump sums and we can leverage up for long-term care. You know, Global Atlantic has a nice product where you can double or triple a deposit immediately for long-term care. So there's a lot of different things. Some things you might want to consider if you're affiliated with a financial institution, you could get a CD renewal list. That would be something that you could potentially do. Obviously, train staff if you're in a financial institution. But I think the easiest thing if you're not in an institution is when you're in your annual reviews, simply ask, you know, what do you have for savings, right? And what is your plan for emergency fund? And what's your plan for long-term care? And that's where you're going to identify these. Ask them if they have any CDs and if they're happy with the renewal rates. Is there a message we should give guys on annuities right now too?
We do have a couple of questions to field, Rod, if you have a moment.
Yep, sure do.
From Jamie and Mary. So the question is, if you want to go to that, maybe a ledger that you put together with the optional surrender charge waiver and then without.
Okay, so you want me to go at this snapshot?
Right, perfect, okay. Perfect. So the question is from Mary, can you review the surrender charges again and how that makes a difference? So with North American, you have two options. So first of all, there is no load, meaning that there is no cost of insurance. But with North American, you have a 10-year surrender that is decreasing, and then you can put an optional surrender charge waiver that would eliminate the surrender charges. So then the cash value in year one actually would be positive in comparison to the deposit. So let's show that example here.
Okay, so let's get into the surrender schedule here then. When we see, want to be at a different spot. It's going to be soon. Here we go. All right, so here's the current assumptions that we're using. Remember I told you that we had a net return of 3,900, which was 3.9% internal rate of return. Well, we
this
actually
is
have
the optional surrender charge waiver, right?
This is with a surrender charge, correct. And so the account value actually has 105,000 in year one, but we can only walk away with 103. And so this is showing this declining schedule. And once we get past year 10, then these numbers are the same. Okay, so there is a surrender charge there. And as we described, why it would be worth that is because the cash value numbers 10 and 15 and 20 years out are higher when we do have a surrender schedule. And then, by the way, when we waive the surrender charge, we also do compress compensation as well, right? That isn't always a primary motivation, but something that we consider doing. But it really depends what the client wants to see, right? So this was best case, right? Or current case. Well, worst case on a guaranteed basis, at the end of the year, they have 101,000 in their account, but only $99,000 available to them, right? And that compares differently than the structure that North American has with no surrender charges. If I go to that same page here, what you've got here is 104,280, 104,280. No surrender schedule whatsoever, which also then means that on a worst case scenario basis, the client could lose what, $71. By the way, is it worth $71 in year one to just buy this life insurance? That's $70 for $150,000 of life insurance, right? If you think about that, that's crazy cheap, right? Now, again, are we going to be happy with this performance? No. Okay, but it preserved most of the money. By the way, if we were at the CD and we earned 1%, we earned $1,000 and then it's taxable. Taxable at what? Let's call it 20%. We earned $800. So the CD in year one would be worth 100,800. And this one would be worth 99.9. And again, we have the opportunity to earn 4, 5, 6% in an account like this. I hope that answers it. That was Jamie and Mary, I think.
Correct. Another question from Jamie is about why is the account value 105, 104,000 when the return is 6.12%?
Yep. That's a gross return before they take out the charges. And that's why we talk about net return. So when you see this net return, that is a 4.2% return. So if you got 6.12, that's considered a gross return, but we have to pull out the charges. Okay, that no load is no sales load to put the money in. Most companies, when you contribute a premium, might charge 3, 5, 7%, but they do indeed have to charge for the life insurance itself. And so that is actually related to why they can offer these bigger caps, because they get to take the insurance costs out of here too. So to be really clear, Jamie, we're getting 6.1% net, but then they have to pull out the costs. And once they pull out the costs, we're left with this 104,280, which represents 4.2%, which means that the cost of insurance all in was almost 2%, right? But what did we get for 2%? We got the ability to leverage this death benefit by 1.5 times. We also got the ability to get a lift on our lazy assets with how our money is actually invested. And we also got the tax deferral. And those are all things that we would not get in an annuity structure with the same $100,000. Hope that answers it. We have anything else there, Andrew?
No, that was great. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So I think, are we done here? Can I highlight my our toolbox here for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just make, again, one more comment that, both products are fantastic, once you realize how liquid these products are and what kind of leverage you can get, and most importantly, that it comes with living benefits and the death benefit. What gets me excited, and I suspect that maybe is the case with a lot of our audience as well, is that, there's definitely something that will add to your agency revenue, especially with that United Life's Legacy Excel product, because you're looking at compensation almost like an annuity, where you're looking at 7%. And with United Life's product, you do have both no loads feature as well as built-in no surrender charge waiver automatically in there. On top of that, you have accelerated underwriting. And when you combine all those features together, I think even if you have 4 or 5 clients a year that where you approach for this product, that will add considerable GDC and commission to your revenue.
Yep, exactly right. Well, thank you guys. All right, so some of you are hopefully aware that we have an insurance advisor toolbox. So this toolbox is designed to have everything that you'll need to intentionally integrate insurance into your practice. As we said at the top of this call, what we do is we really train advisors to have better conversations. And we really do that by helping them identify the people that they need to talk to, and then ultimately position those conversations, right? And then if we can identify and position those appropriately, Then the next step is either to implement it. How do we get this done, right? Underwriting can be problematic. It can be tough. So what's the best and quickest way to implement this? Or do we want to introduce this opportunity to a specialist who might do joint work, such as myself? Most of my practice is actually working point of sale with advisors on a joint work basis. And so this is designed to have everything we need to help you identify, position, and either implement or introduce opportunities to your clients. And so in each of these tabs, this is an interactive PDF that effectively drills down in all of our best material. And you can go in and grab these and it goes and pulls them from a SharePoint drive. And so this is consistently being updated by us, and it really has all of our best stuff, right? And so under the identification tab, we have profiling tools, which are similar to, the who do you know? Who do you know that might be right for strategy A, B, or C? There's an overview piece in here. We have a couple of different fact finders and life insurance needs analysis, right? A couple of questionnaires like where are your assets? So there's a number of really good pieces in here that might be able to help you, again, do a better job of identifying. And I call that just asking one more question, right? Oh, by the way. And the identification isn't people that love insurance people, and want to pay insurance premiums. It's people who love their family. It's people who have tax problems. It's people who have too much money in lazy assets, right? People who are concerned about long-term care funding. And so we've got different solutions here to identify. Then we go into positioning. Well, once we know the client we're talking to, what are we going to say? We have life insurance review scripts. We have discovery meeting scripts, maturing CD scripts, right? Long-term care, we have a great outline on how to have an engaged planning conversation, right? We have a toolkit for annual review that doesn't just include insurance. It's actually designed by wealth advisors to include insurance. We've got different things like historical tax charts, which become very important, and taxable equivalence charts. So much of our work on the accumulation side of things for insurance is around comparing the cost of insurance to the cost of taxes, and we need to understand that. We've got some really nice white papers on how life insurance works and long-term care for that matter. These videos and webinars that we do, we record all of these and we put them inside of this box. So there's a number of things that you can do. When George came on board a couple of years ago, this was core in his training. Part of his training was to systematically come and consume some of these items. And we could put you on a similar track, right? We could take, this has too much, right? It has everything you need, but it's too much. And so what we need to go is, well, what kind of opportunities are we talking about? And then we can shortcut that for you. So we can help you put together a business plan. It's St. Patrick's Day, and you might think it's too late to put a business plan together for insurance for this year, but I don't think so. We can still do it. We can help you do that intentionally. And so if we can identify those and we can position those, then it's a matter of implementation, right? And so how do we get quotes? How do we write business? We try to do everything we can electronically nowadays to the extent that we can, and our team is very good at being able to steward that work for you. If you like what you heard on all of these, but you don't want to do that work yourself, or maybe you don't feel comfortable doing that work yourself, you can certainly do joint work with me or others, right? By being able to introduce that. And those are things that, again, we can help train you and coach you to do. You guys have any comments about this this toolbox? My last comment is, if you haven't seen this, reach out to us and we'll send it to you. You're going to find something in here that's going to make sense, and you might find $10,000, $50,000, or $100,000 of revenue just by paying attention here.
It's true, Rod. It's a great library. It certainly helped me, but we can be your librarian and help, debrief the case and then steer some of these materials toward you, plus many more that are carrier-based that might be even more specific to your case or product we're considering. So they're really just such a wealth of information. Just encourage everyone to contact us and let us just help you prepare for your next meeting or review.
Very good. Andrew, any last words from you?
No, and want to say thank you for everybody and their time, especially given that the basketball tournament has started today. So I appreciate you prioritizing us. And if you haven't given us a chance with your first piece of business, I invite you to do so. And I put in my own name on it that you will not be disappointed. So thank you very much.
That's exactly right. So hopefully on your screen, you can see that I've put up contact information for everyone. And so reach out to George or Andrew or myself. I might be having a technical issue right now. There's me and there's George. And by the way, don't forget to mark your schedule for April 21st. That's our next Coach's Corner. That occurs on the third Thursday of every month. And so when you do this type of work appropriately, in our opinion, you effectively do the right thing for the client. You drive revenue to your practice. You protect your assets under management, which might be the biggest asset you have. And then you create competitive immunity, because never forget that your clients are somebody else's prospects. So with that, we want to wish you a great day. I hope you enjoy the green beer if that's where you're headed. And I hope you win your bracket, unless you're in my bracket. So
Thank you.
appreciate you
Thanks,
guys.
Al.
Have a good
Appreciate
one.
it.
Take care.
Take care.